Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Newsroom Series. I'm Olumide Macaulay. Thank you for joining us. The Lagos High Court sitting in Ikeja is ruling on the application filed by the former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, challenging the jurisdiction of the Lagos High Court to try him on the charge brought against him by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Through his lawyer, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Olalekan Ojo, Mr. Emefiele submitted he cannot be tried in the High Court of any state in Nigeria for alleged acts of abuse of his office, as this raises issues of constitutionality and legality. The former CBN governor also notes that counts 1 to 4 of the 26 counts charged filed by the EFCC against him are unconstitutional, as they are not contained in any law in Nigeria. The Minister of Power and NERC today appeared before the Senate Committee on Power for a one-day investigative hearing on the need to halt the proposed increase in electricity tariff by 11 successor electricity distribution companies and the planned hike in electricity tariffs by the discos amidst the economic situation in Nigeria at the moment. The chairman of the committee, Senator Einaya Baribe, raised the question of how it was migrated from the previous customer classes of residential R1, R2, R3, commercial C1, C2, and demand D1, D2 to different bands. He is requesting to know if the band classifications is in accordance with the provisions of the law. Now, motorists are still going through the horrors of fuel scarcity as queues persist across the country. In the nation's capital, Abuja, cars could be seen lining up along major streets, even in front of stations that are not selling fuel. Black marketers are also back on the block, selling at exorbitant prices, some as high as 1,200 naira per liter. Others insist on 1,300 naira per liter for a liter of petrol. Same situation is being witnessed in Kaduna State, where residents are appealing to the NNPCL to urgently address the prevailing petrol scarcity. And Newsroom Series today focuses on the southwest region of Nigeria and the prevailing petrol scarcity in the country, and that's where we'll stay for the moment. Major cities in the country are experiencing fuel shortage as long queues, as we just told you, are lining fuel stations between Lagos and Ogun State, especially the border communities, as well as other major commercial areas. In Abeokuta, for instance, the Ogun State capital, residents struggle endlessly at various fuel stations to buy PMS. This development has resulted in a hike in transport fare in and around the state capital, as petrol stations sell the commodity at the normal price, whole at black markets. That is, at black markets that have been sold for between 850 naira and 1,000 naira. In Ondo State, residents of Akure, the Ondo State capital, have appealed to the government and relevant agencies to find solutions to the lingering fuel scarcity in the country. Monitoring the situation in the city shows that only a few outlets are dispensing fuel. Customers are forced to spend hours on the queue to buy the product. Some retail outlets managers who spoke to our correspondent off camera complained that the supply of the product to them has reduced drastically. So what exactly is the problem? Marketers, for one, have blamed the fresh scarcity of premium motor spirit, popularly known as petrol, on a supply challenge from the major oil suppliers in the country, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company, NNPCL. The national president of the Petroleum Product Retail Outlet Owners Association of Nigeria, Billy Gillis Hari, made this known today on our breakfast program, Sunrise Daily.
We do not have access to the product. So once the product is available in all the depots and we are being issued our products, we will certainly complement NNPC's effort in making sure that all the stations are wet. and we are doing that consistently. Even in this season and this time, NNPC in the last few weeks have squeezed in loading batches to accommodate everybody, including the NNPC stations and Petron members and even IFMAN members. And we are taking products bit by bit to our various stations. Recently, we have also made a proposal where we must be able to service intervention stations that will be what can help in making sure that there are no queues so long in NNPC stations, but also in other stations, so we can be able to service the public more efficiently and in a very relatively fast way, so that there are no queues, there are no delays, and people don't stay in the filling stations for 2 days or 3 days.
Away from the fuel scarcity, staying in the region, the Ogun State Governor, Mr. Abeokuta, has ordered the evacuation of residents, integrity tests on some of the buildings and other structures affected by the gas explosion which claimed a life yesterday in Abeokuta, the state capital, as well as offset the medical bills of the injured, which he did. He gave the order during an on-the-spot assessment of damage done by the explosion, where he was accompanied by members of the State Executive Council, Commissioner of Police in the state, members of the State Emergency Management Agency, and other first responders. While appreciating residents for their calm and understanding nature in the matter, the governor says that a policy framework and regulation of the movement of compressed natural gas is being worked upon to regulate movement of the product in the state.
Besides the fact that our Emergency Management Authority have taken stock of all those businesses, residences that have been affected by this unfortunate incident, I have directed that 1 or 2 buildings be evacuated until our regulatory agency that's in charge does the required integrity tests on those buildings to ensure that they are safe for people to continue to live in there. All those affected will be duly and adequately compensated. All those who are in hospital will take over, their treatment. But beyond that, as a state government and as a responsible one, we are going to ensure that we put the required legislation in place to provide the required oversight for this industry. You know that this industry's oversight is on the exclusive list of the Constitution of the federal government. But now, because of what we have seen, to forestall any such happening in the future.
And speaking of the Constitution, let's Constitution amendments strengthen democracy, unite Nigeria, according to Governor Seyi Makinde of Oyo State, as he told the National Assembly Joint Committee. The Oyo State Governor, Governor Seyi Makinde, says the legislature must be able to push for amendment that can strengthen democracy and further unite the country. He made the call when receiving members of the National Assembly Joint Committee on Electoral Matters in his office. He also recommended that the lawmakers muster the courage for the amendment that will strengthen the nation's democracy and unite the country.
The National Assembly Committee on Electoral Matters is in Oyo State to interface with different groups on proposed constitution amendments. Receiving the committee at the executive chambers of the governor's office, Governor Seyi Makinde charges them to ensure that the proposed amendments to the Constitution are in the best interest of Nigerians, capable of enthroning unity and strengthening democracy. He adds that Nigerians must have enough confidence in the country's democracy to participate in it.
Participatory democracy means that you have to keep looking at, the law that is governing, the participation, and also you need to ensure that the outcome, of any election reflects substantially, the wishes of the people.
The committee had earlier before this visit met with various stakeholders, especially the youth, to encourage their active participation in the amendment process.
The best way to get people involved.
The Chairman Senate Committee on Electoral Matters and the leader of the team says the meeting became necessary to provide robust engagement capable of bridging identified gaps in the electoral system among all stakeholders.
I believe that when people are involved in their affairs, they tend to be more interested. And that's why we have decided, when this committee was set up, that we are going to consult with every strata of the society. For today, we are taking up with engaging with the youth.
The committee adds that the engagement kickstarts in Oyo State because of the stance of Governor Makinde on youth participation in politics and governance.
What we are doing here today is to ensure that the youth are also involved in the amendment of the Electoral Act. Your participation is also to be known through your activities, which is involving yourself in the amendment of the Electoral Act in all our laws generally, to ensure that Nigeria gets the best law. We are there as honorable members just to represent you. The laws are amended by the people, and the youth are the majority of these people. So they must be involved, and that's what this House has actually been able to do.
One of the key areas of focus, according to Governor Makinde, is the need to stop the tradition of endless litigations after every election cycle in the country. The Joint Committee, on its part, says inclusion is key to its mandate, and to that extent, it will visit every zone in the country to ensure that the views of Nigerians are captured in the amendments. Bukola Orio, Channel Television News.
The Lagos State government has announced that 2,000 CNG buses will be rolled out before the end of the year. That's according to the State Commissioner for Transportation, Mr. Oluwaseun Oshiemi, who was speaking at the commencement of the 2024 ministerial briefing at Alausa, Ikeja. Commissioner for Basic and Secondary Education, Mr. Jamiu Alibalogun, also announced that 13,000 out-of-school children were returned to the classrooms as part of measures put in place to address short, medium, and long-term challenges in the provision of qualitative education in Lagos State. Traffic management and transportation is first on the list of Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu's Themes Plus agenda, a critical sector closely monitored by the state government to ensure free flow of movement across the metropolis. With so much investment in rail, water, and road transportation, the ministry in charge of the sector takes the lead of the 2024 ministerial press briefing, a platform designed by the Lagos State government to reel out achievements of all ministries and agencies in the last 1 year of Governor Sanwo-Olu's administration.
The usage of Emefiele to capture other related traffic offences, each vehicle moving against traffic. The Emefiele captured 856,680 violations from January 2023 to March 2024. To reduce human interface, the Traffic Management Solution (TMS) devices handled by the VIS officers captured 10,421 violations between January and March 2024.
To effectively regulate all forms of illegal parking impeding free flow of traffic, the Lagos State Parking Authority has created a total of 1,574 parking slots to ease traffic congestion across traffic-prone areas. The General Manager of LASPA gives clarification on the issue of street parking and setback options.
If you are a business, whether you park on the setback or in your compound, there is a fee that is applicable. Not new, because they were paying to the local governments. But what we've done now is we have an agreement with all the local governments, the 57 in Lagos State. We will take over that power so that we can run it effectively. Again, it's not new in Lagos. It's the same thing LASA does, Land Use Charge does, but we're now taking that over. So we send out your demand notices, we pay for your setback parking. That way, it allows us to regulate parking.
On the issue of the conduct of officials of the State Traffic Management Authority and other personnel attached to the sector, the special advisor explains the fine process for traffic offenders.
For last month, we do not even give you fine. The first thing we give you is a referral to court. We give you what is called a referral. It is not you that can say that I do not want to go to court, I want to waive my right, so give me a fine.
Next in line is the Minister of Basic and Secondary Education, the Commissioner in charge, Jamiu Alibalogun, briefs on the number of out-of-school children, approved schools in the last 1 year, and other success stories.
In the current school year, which is 2024, the governor has approved the sum of 1,571,076,000 naira to be paid to WAEC.
Constructed new schools under the current administration is also highlighted.
The Outland Junior, commissioned on 29th of June 2022, that's a special school. It's an high-children school. It's one of its kind in all of West Africa. We are proud to always show and display that, and a lot of states are copying that now, and we are doing more of that. We have Ogun at the Court Street in Emefiele. That was commissioned on 26th of May 2023.
The exercise continues in the next 1 month for other ministries to give account of their stewardship to the public. The African continent has a lot to gain if she comes together to harness resources and potentials to enhance their common and shared interests instead of focusing on competing with each other. Consul General of South Africa to Nigeria, Professor Bobby Moreau, gave the advice at a public lecture which examines the bilateral relations between Nigeria and South Africa in the last 30 years. Professor Moreau noted that the two countries share a rich tapestry of history that shaped the diplomatic relations between them, and this must be contextualized properly by changing the narrative of mutual suspicion and mistrust to replace it with mutual respect for the success of political and economic integration between the two countries and Africa.
Formal diplomatic relations between Nigeria and South Africa began in 1994, and both have endured a complex but long history of kinship with remarkable progress, yet with serious existential challenges. Despite these challenges, the Consul General of South Africa to Nigeria, who was the guest lecturer at this public lecture held at Bowen University in Osun State, believes there's cause to celebrate 30 years of unbroken diplomatic relations between the two countries.
Although South Africa and Nigeria...
He notes that the challenges of inequality, poverty, unemployment, and insecurity are some of the inhibiting factors to the actualization of national unity and social cohesion for these two African nations.
The story is that the relations between South Africa and Nigeria are significant for both countries' international relations engagement and edged in the very strong foundations of a shared common history of colonialism. Firstly, in Africa, they are amongst the two biggest economic giants, but they also carry the burden of ensuring that they both support the countries of the continent to grow their economies and reduce unemployment, poverty, and inequality.
With at least 36 agreements negotiated and signed to facilitate and strengthen economic and political relations, promote trade opportunities and social cohesion, this public lecture seeks to promote seamless trading opportunities and smooth political and cultural integration.
South Africa and Nigeria are the two continental giants, and one thing that we cannot continue to do is to compete with each other. We rather collaborate and make use of our complementarities in order to make sure that we spearhead the process of industrialization in Africa successfully. Because the rest of the continent relies on our competencies, it relies on our GDPs, it relies on our populations.
A professor of international relations who chairs the lecture is excited at the insights provided by the lecture and hopes it will help improve diplomatic ties between Nigeria and South Africa.
The gaps is just in the perception, and I believe that with this kind of education we have today, it's likely that we will continue to define relationship properly with the cooperation rather than the conflict and competition.
Sharing similar sentiments, the management of Bowen University is optimistic that the lecture provides a pathway to bridging identified gaps and hopes that the benefits from diplomatic kinship will be mutual going forward.
Most foreigners living in Nigeria have been having quite a good time which has not been the same thing in South Africa. And I think that is the major one that probably the South African government may need to look at.
The shared history and ties between Nigeria and South Africa have been marked with volatility and tension in recent years. This public lecture seeks a change in the narrative by erasing mutual suspicion and promoting trust and mutual respect for a more prosperous and peaceful diplomatic union between both countries.
In its support for Palestine and Israel.
Now, for more information on the fuel scarcity that has bedeviled the country in the past few days, especially from Lagos to Kaduna to Abuja, we have our energy correspondent in the studios with us on Newsroom series today, Olu Phillips, our energy correspondent. Olu, it's good to have you.
Thank you very much.
So, again, we've seen this play out. Now it's just as bad as before, and one wonders how long this will continue to happen. And what is the reason behind this most recent fuel scarcity?
I think it's important to understand that we do not have control over end-to-end vagaries of supply and distribution system. You can't wish certain things to happen if you don't have absolute control. For instance, the best of the control we have here is the crude that we take out of the country, refine it, and get people who are been licensed to do that swap to bring back the finished petroleum products like diesel, PMS, and what have you, aviation fuel. Maybe now that Dangote is beginning to do something around the diesel, then you can see a drawback from that diesel supply. But
is there any artificial scarcity being engineered by any of the petrol stations, as it's been alleged, that some stations have fuel they're not selling to people?
Is that a possibility? Yes, it's a possibility because once you interrupt that distribution system, once there's an interruption for a system that, or for a country that depends solely 100% on importation of PMS, once there's a systems glitch from either from the freight angle, from the supply angle, from the vessels arriving in the Nigerian Cotonou waters, from the ship-to-ship transfer, from the transfer into the tank farms, from the paperwork where truckers go to the tank farms to pick up the petroleum product and bring them to the stations scattered, over 3,000 stations scattered across the country, that factor in all the transportation system. The only time you have a non-interruption or seamless distribution and getting it when you want it is when you constantly do this every day. So if 400 trucks, for instance, leave Lagos to various filling stations every day, and something happens and for 24 hours you moved only 200, that will affect the ultimate supply to the fuel stations. Are there enough products? From the investigations we have made here on Channels TV, yes, there's enough product, at least onshore, on the vessels.
So what's causing the scarcity?
So, like I said, the glitch in the distribution and logistics that happened some few days ago or a week plus ago has affected the entire value chain. What I can tell Nigerians from our investigations here on Channels Television is that there is the product onshore, but the movement from that to the tank farms and tank farms to the truckers to the fuel stations into your car or into your generator, there was a bit of a challenge. And we don't want to discuss those challenges here because we don't want to give credence to those who have caused that to happen, but those issues are being sorted out. And let's also warn that until we ultimately have control over production, refining, and distribution in country, we will continue to see pockets of this. I won't be surprised if this is not the last we're going to see before the year runs out, until those refineries come on, until we're able to control the entire value chain end to end from crude to your car. If we don't have that system in place, we'll continue to run this. And if we also do not have control and stability around Forex, because if you bring in a cargo of 20 tons, 20 metric tons, for instance, and pay $50 million, for instance, at a unit price of any amount in dollar, and in 1 week that flips, it affects what it's going to be, the landing cost, and what it's going to charge you. Someone has to pay for that differential. It's accounting. You lose it one here, you must block it here. You take it out here, you must block it here. There's no one leg accounting.
Yeah, robbing Peter to pay Paul, adding fuel to the fire. Thank you. Olu Phillips, our energy correspondent. Finally, our Newsroom series today, Conducting examinations in Nigeria presents significant challenges due to the instances of insecurity in various regions. To ensure the safety and security of candidates, extra security measures are being arranged in insecurity-prone areas. Collaborations with the Inspector General of Police and state governments are underway to provide adequate security for the national examination. Now, the West African Examination Council, WAEC, has announced the schedule for the WASC for Schools Candidates 2024 in Nigeria, set to run from Tuesday, April 30th to Monday, June the 24th. This 7-week and 6-day examination will not only take place in Nigeria, but also across WAEC member countries, including Gambia, Sierra Leone, and Liberia.
We cannot feign ignorance of the level of insecurity in the country. Conducting examinations has been challenging. Instances of insecurity exist in many places across the country, and conducting examinations in insecurity-prone areas would require extra security arrangements. Consequently, we are liaising with the Inspector General of Police and state governments to provide adequate security to ensure that the examination is conducted nationally in a safe and secure environment. The Council appreciates the continued support received from the Nigeria Police as partners in actualizing its goals during the conduct of its examinations. Examination malpractice. Gentlemen, let me remind you that the Council decisively deals with candidates and examination functionaries who engage in acts of examination malpractice of any kind. The penalties for involvement in examination malpractice are meted out on erring candidates, supervisors, and schools, etc., upon establishment of culpability by the Nigerian Examinations Council, NEC, which is the highest decision-making organ of the Council that sits on examination matters in Nigeria.
That's it on Newsroom series today. Thank you for watching. I'm Olumide Macaulay.